It's Transformers 96 here at the end of the video review. This time we have the Star Wars Disney Store exclusive Elite Series Darth Maul figure. Let's go over the package here. As you can see, I do have one mint. When I got this, I really liked the look of him in package, and because of his colors, he matched the package really nicely. And just in general, I like the design of the package, so I did decide to keep this mint and buy another one because he was and is still in stock on DisneyStore.com. So yeah, as you can see, this is how he's going to look inside the package. The lightsabers will be just on either side of him, and they are split in package. Overall, the packaging design is really nice, though. A lot of open windows, and even on the top here, so you can really see the figure and see the figure from multiple angles, as well as I love the fact that they do outline the package in this really nice metallic, shiny red. I think it looks great, and just makes the packaging look nicer. On the back, you do have a description of both the Elite Series and Darth Maul himself, so yeah. So let's go over the figure. So very excited for this one. He is part of their promotion on the Elite Series. Every 2 weeks, starting with Darth Maul, they are releasing a new Elite Series figure that represents one of the 7 movies from Star Wars, and obviously he represents the Phantom Menace. Next week it'll be Anakin for Attack of the Clones, and so on and so forth. So overall, this is a great one to start out that line from. It is a bit of a pain to get. If you want to get them in stores the day of, you have to go to your Disney store between 12 and 8, put your name in for a lottery, and if your name is picked, you will be able to buy him. You don't get him for free or anything, so it's a pain to buy him. But the next day they will have them online, so you'll have to wait longer if you want to buy him online, just because you have to wait a day and then you have to wait for it to be shipped, as well as you'll have to pay shipping. But other than that, there's not too many great things about just buying them in stores. It's more of a pain. However, very happy with the figure. So let's go over the figure. Going over the actual sculpt, I will be comparing him heavily to the Black Series one here soon. But just going over this face sculpt, I think it looks really great. Definitely really resembles Darth Maul from the movie. I think it looks fantastic. As well, it's extremely well painted. The lines are quite even where they're supposed to be even, and I think it looks fantastic. They didn't really get too much, if at all, or any sort of black paint bleed on his horns, which I think is great, and I think that's the #1 thing that is missed when it comes to paint for Darth Maul figures. Obviously, let's start the comparison between the Black Series one on this face sculpt. So overall, I think that, as you can see here, the Elite Series 1 definitely has a more movie-accurate face sculpt. I think it looks a lot better. I love the Black Series 1. I think it looks great. It's not as movie-accurate. And then his horns have red on his horns, which I've always hated. If you do look at their face paint, it is done in the same type of order. However, it is different. There are different things with it. So I'm not quite sure which one is more accurate. You're going to have to watch the movie and watch some stills. However, I think that they both do the paint really nicely. It's more organized with the Elite Series one, so it kind of has that more. It has a more accurate look to it. Whether it is more accurate just in the way the face paint is designed, I'm not quite sure. However, it does give the illusion of it being more accurate. One thing that I will mention is that there is on his face paint one black line. There you go, right above his eye. And then on the other side, there isn't that black line. At first, when I just had one of these Darth Mauls, I thought that it was a paint mess up. However, on both of my Darth Mauls, it is like that. So that isn't, it's an intentional paint splotch. Now on the Black Series one, let's get it to focus on him. There you go. He has it as well. There, as you can see, he has it there and on the other side. So I'm not quite sure if in the movie he just has that line on one side of his face or both. But like I said, the face paint is different between the two. Not quite sure which one is more accurate. They both look great. However, I think that this face sculpt is more accurate just looking in general, and more realistic looking than the Black Series one. Going over the actual costume here, it looks really nice. They've sculpted it really well, done some great lines, and it is done in I would say either a dark gray or a light black, more I guess light black design, which I think is pretty decent. Now, I do love the deep black that they've gone with on the Black Series one. I think that looks a little bit better. However, I don't mind this, and this might be more accurate. I'm not quite sure. However, it does look good. I do prefer the darker black. And then they've gone with a very dark glossy black for the gloves, belt, and boots. Overall, a really nicely designed figure, as you can see. The cloth is a softer plastic. It's not quite rubber, but it is softer, so you can pose his legs, and this doesn't really doesn't hinder his articulation too much. There is a bit of a hindrance, but nothing too extreme, so that's not too bad. And overall, just a really nice sculpt in general. I have to say I like it a lot. His lightsaber looks really good. The only problem I have with it is the black lines on the ends of his lightsaber. Those aren't accurate, and they're not even painted that well, so I'm not quite sure what prompted them to do that, but I don't like the look of it, and like I said, I don't think it's accurate. With the actual blade itself, they did go with just a plain red on the stick. They didn't do translucent. They didn't do like any sort of texture in it to make it look like it's igniting or anything like that. So overall, a lot of people I can see not liking this. However, for me, I don't really mind it too much. I'm not, I don't really have a preference between just a flat color and translucent. I think that they both look good. I do like it when they do texture in some like igniting layering on it. I think that looks really nice. However, I have to say it is pretty rare to see that happen. So overall, I think that the lightsaber is quite good. It can be split in two, and one of the blades will have a what do you call it? It's a peg on it that goes into the hole on the other blade. So yeah, overall it does really nicely. He can hold it with both hands. Of course, both of his hands are sculpted for holding the lightsaber. Going over the articulation here is pretty standard Elite Series articulation, except that he does have one extra joint compared to all the other Elite Series figures so far, so that is quite interesting. First of all, he's got a ball jointed head, which is nice. He can look up and down slightly, side to side, of course. Unfortunately, just the way that his neck is sculpted, he's kind of slightly hunched over with his neck. Because of that, when you turn his head, he will have that tilted head, unfortunately. With all the other Elite Series figures, their neck isn't so pointed into their head and more going up, so they are able to turn their head without giving this kind of strange tilt to it, but the tilt only occurs when you have his head extremely turned. Then he has ball hinge shoulders, hinge at the elbow. The elbow hinge is, a little less than 90 degrees, which usually the Elite Series figures can do a full 90 degrees. It's just because of how the upper arm is obviously sculpted much wider and thicker because it is the extra fabric there. Then he has a swivel at the wrist, swivel at the waist, ball jointed hips, hinge knees, which work really well, full 90 degrees, and then he has a hinge, and while all the other Elite Series figures just swivel at the ankle, he also pivots, and he pivots really well too. So this is an extremely nice joint, and it allows you to do wide stance poses with Darth Maul with having his feet flat on the ground, which is fantastic. Something that I really wasn't expecting from the Elite Series, and yet they delivered on this figure, so really cool. I hope that this becomes a more standard joint for them. That would be wonderful. One thing also to mention is that his arm, or his hand, is at an angle, which is really cool. They didn't just sculpt his hand right here, so the lightsaber would have to be just going, in this way. They did sculpt it so that his hand was a little bit pivoted down, so that he can hold his lightsaber at more of an angle, which is more natural and realistic looking, and I think looks so much better. So really, round of applause to that company for thinking of doing that, because that looks so good. And most companies just have them with the regular like this instead of tilted, like they decided to tilt it, so happy about that. On his back, of course, you can see the screws. This is something that a lot of people don't like from the Elite Series. However, it doesn't really bother me. I don't display my figures, back facing me for obvious reasons, and I really just don't look at the back of my figures very often either. So it's something that's, annoying, and I can see a lot of people disliking that, but it doesn't really bother me in the long run. It's really not too annoying for me. So it is something to note, but nothing too bad. His articulation, obviously, with the Elite Series, just in general, I really want to start getting Elite Series figures to have a swivel at the elbows or at the biceps, because obviously without that he can't hold the lightsaber with two hands, and all the figures that come with guns can't hold their guns with two hands, which is unfortunate. However, I think that, it's not super needed. Like, I consider this Elite Series as more, having enough articulation to get them in really cool stances, but not to do dynamic posing with. I consider the dynamic posing to be the Black Series specialty. If these guys had just as good of articulation as Black Series, there would be no reason to buy the Black Series figures. So I really do hope we start getting a swivel at the elbow, but for now, it's fine. Let's go over some size comparisons. Alright, so of course we have the Elite Series Darth Maul in the middle, and on his left we have the Black Series one, and on his right we have the Elite Series Kylo Ren. So as you can see, he is quite short for the Elite Series. He's just a tad bit taller than the Black Series one, and then he's quite a bit shorter than Kylo Ren. Now obviously Ray Park and the character of Darth Maul is a short character, so it makes sense that he should be shorter. However, this seems to be a big difference to me. Now I do have his legs spread out just a bit, so if they were in closer, this wouldn't be as big of a difference. However, it is still quite a big difference, so I'm not quite sure how accurate this is. I believe Ray Park is like a 5'9", and I don't know how tall Kylo Ren is, but this does seem to be too much of a difference, so I think that either they've done Darth Maul too small, or they've done Kylo Ren too large. It might be a combination of them both. However, they do still look good together. They look like they come from the same series. They don't look like they are, two different series of figures, so it's not a huge difference, but it is something to note. Now, Stormtrooper isn't as tall as Kylo Ren, so he looks more in line with a Stormtrooper, and then the Rey figure from the Elite Series is just under Darth Maul's height. So I think that with Kylo Ren he looks a bit strange, but with everybody else he is more in scale, I would say. So I might think that the scale might have the problem with the scale might be due to Kylo Ren's size. I think that he might just be a little bit too big for the Elite Series. However, he does look great with all of the other Siths. Alright, so aside from the lightsaber, he does come with this standard base that the Elite Series figures come with. It's a base that I don't really like, and unlike popular belief, the Elite Series figures can really stand up on their own. I have no problem standing them up, and I stand up all of my Elite Series figures without their bases, and they're all fine. So I don't use the bases, but if you are worried that the Elite Series figures, because they're so heavy, because they're die-cast, then this would be a good thing to use. However, the base design in general I don't really like. I wish that they would do some silver or some chrome outlining the Star Wars name, or maybe do a nameplate that says Darth Maul. Something to kind of give you a wink that this is a special figure, being that it's die-cast, or just, something better than this really plain just oval that says Star Wars on it. So yeah, overall though, this is a great figure. Would highly recommend it to any of the Elite Series collectors. He's got slightly better articulation than your average Elite Series figure, which is really cool. I really hope that they continue with that trend of giving us, slightly better articulation, or a figure here and there that needs a point of articulation, and then they end up giving it to them, even if it's not in their standard of articulation. Because the pivot on the ankle, if I had to pick one figure that it would go to out of the Elite Series figures, I think Darth Maul would be the one that needs it, because he's just such a dynamic character, and wide stances are definitely going to be what you're going to want to pose him in. So I think that in choosing who to give that ankle pivot to, they've done a wonderful job by selecting Darth Maul for that. So overall, a great figure. Would highly recommend it, and you can still get it online at the moment. With shipping, it's like $33. In stores, I only got it. I got the one in the lottery in stores, and then since then I've never seen it in stores, so I think you'll probably have to buy it online. Overall, a great figure though, and I'm very happy with it. So there you go. That's my review of the Star Wars Disney Store exclusive Elite Series Darth Maul. Thanks so much for watching.